Well, hello everybody. Hello. I'm fully recovered after yesterday's car crash. For those of you who weren't tuned in, yeah, we tried this LinkedIn live broadcast yesterday, and it was a bit of a disaster to say the least. So what we've done is we have switched our restreaming program to this one called StreamYard, and so hopefully things will go a lot better this time than they did yesterday. And let's just pretend yesterday actually never happened, because I actually cringe when I think back to what was going on. But anyway, this is what we're going to be doing today. So this is what we tried to do yesterday was sort of a kind of a theme of what I sort of want to do with LinkedIn Live broadcasts, where I'm going to be basically bringing to you live some of the observations and things that I'm picking up from actually listening to live cold calls or sales calls or discovery calls. I clearly spend a lot of my time using Refract, listening to the conversations that my team are having. I find it quite fascinating. I learn stuff every day by just listening to what some of the stuff that my team are doing in their own conversations, and what I want to do is start to bring those insights to the audience by playing real example calls and moments of conversations for you all to listen, learn from, critique yourself, maybe even put into practice. And this is real conversations where I'm going to play things that the salesperson is doing, things that how the prospect's responding, and kind of giving some analysis on some of the stuff that we're picking up. If you are watching this and anybody that you work with is involved in, so today we're going to be looking at a cold call, is involved in making cold calls, prospecting, tag them in this post, invite them in. Please feel free to pop in any comments or questions that you have as you're watching this. Anything that you disagree with that I'm saying, I want you to put in the post, and I'm really interested to hear your own thoughts and perspectives, and to see what you're making of what I'm sharing. So fingers crossed this will go a lot better than it did yesterday. But so what we're going to start with, this example that I'm going to share today is a call that literally took place this week, about 2 days ago. This is a real completely cold call. What I mean by that is this was a call that one of my colleagues made to a prospect. They didn't know who they were. They weren't expecting the call. They didn't know who Refract were. This was not kind of one of these pretendy cold calls that I sometimes hear that people make, where it's, calling an existing customer from, 4 months ago, or someone that, you once made an event. This is someone where you've got to take the prospect from not having a clue who you are or why you're calling to the point of being interested in spending more time with you, basically, and that is the ultimate objective of a cold call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some the key moments of the conversation from start to finish, and I'm going to stop and start, and I'm going to give you some of my interpretation and analysis of what's happening. And as I say, just if you're watching this, please put in the comments some of the your own observations and learnings, things that you're hearing, and I'd love to hear what people think, as this is ultimately about. There's many ways to skin a cat, as they say. So here we go. We're going to jump straight into it, and I'm going to start to play this conversation. What I want to do, I'm actually going to play the part of the call here from the moment that my colleague Mark starts talking. So the prospects answered the call, and I'm going to play Mark's opening, and I want to give some very specific analysis on very specific words or phrases that Mark's using, and this is why I think Mark is successful in actually getting the prospect to actually give him more time. So here goes. Okay, so
Speaking. Chris, good afternoon. My name's Mark Akers. I'm calling from a company called Refract. Chris, we've not spoken before. I've dropped you a couple of emails though. Can I take 35 seconds to explain why I'm keen to speak with you?
You can do, yeah. I'm just on the car at the moment. That's fine. I'm just travelling back to the office. That's fine.
So what you actually heard there was the prospect that Mark called is actually, he's out and about. He's not in the office. He's about to go in the car. There's every opportunity for this prospect to basically push back to Mark and say, no, now is not a good time. But if you heard what Mark said, there was one word in particular that he used, which I believe was critical here in getting this prospect to say, actually, it doesn't really matter where I am and what I'm doing and the fact this isn't maybe a great time, but I am keen on hearing more. He says the word, why I'm keen to speak with you. Now, I just wonder how many people have ever actually said that at the start of a cold call. Wanted to let you know why I was keen to speak with you. I don't know about you, but when I hear someone say that to me, my intrigue level kind of goes through the roof. I'm kind of thinking that this sounds like a very intentional, very purposeful call. There must be a genuine reason as to why this person's actually called me. It doesn't sound like your atypical sales call. This doesn't scream to me like I'm just on a big long list of prospects here and I'm number 34 and Mark's just playing the numbers game. It sounds like it's a very, very intentional call that Mark has made to myself, the prospect, at that specific moment in time. And as you heard, the prospect kind of like says, "Oh, I'm out and about. I'm not in the office, but yeah, go ahead." And that is why I believe Mark gets the result that he that he was striving for. So I'm just gonna jump forward to another key part of the conversation here, and I think this is oftentimes something that we all face in calls. Is we kind of give our opening, the prospect is still sort of has an element of like they're unsure exactly what it is this conversation's about. And what they often do is they ask the question, just sorry, what is this? What are you pitching? What do you mean? And this is exactly what the prospect says after Mark's done his initial positioning of value to the prospect.
Quality control type checks on calls. So what specifically are you pitching?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? What specifically are you pitching? It's kind of the prospect who they're sort of saying, listen, I've sort of divulged a little bit as to what it is that you're talking about, but I kind of just want you to get to the point, so to speak, which is perfectly understandable from a prospect's point of view. That they're looking for clarity. They're looking for they want to kind of wade their way through the murkiness of sometimes the ambiguity that comes with a cold call. But this is where I think so many salespeople fall down. One of the biggest problems I see that they make is at this stage when someone says, "What are you pitching?" The next thing that comes out of their salesperson's mouth is a product dump, is a feature dump, and it will, they basically feel that what are you pitching is the prospect's invitation to say, "Tell me all about your product." And that's not the object. That's not the result that you're looking for here. Because if Mark was to respond here by just talking about features and talking about the product, it is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make to get the prospect to gloss over, to tune out, to think we've already got something like that, or I don't need one of those widgets or those integrations or that AI. It doesn't really make much sense. And what I feel Mark does really well at this part of the conversation is he doesn't respond straight away with that feature dump. He instead kind of goes into a little bit of storytelling mode. And I'll just play back exactly what he says here at this part of the conversation.
Yeah, sure. So are you okay for a couple more minutes then, Chris? Because I'm conscious of that.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I just got back to the office. I do need to go into a meeting in a couple of minutes, but I'm all right for a couple.
All right, Chris. So this is what I'm picturing. You've got people, as you say, that reviewing calls, ensuring call quality. That often isn't scalable. There's more conversations happening than can possibly be reviewed.
So Mark basically does another angle of just essentially explaining the problem, the initial problem that he said at the start of the call, but at a much kind of deeper level. It could have been very easily for him to just straight away go into telling all about features and benefits of Refract, but he just kind of thought, actually, what this prospect needs is just some more clarity to the problem. And he contextualizes it. Before he talks about the product, he says, what you're facing is this problem, and this is the challenge that you have with that problem. And almost saying it in very simplistic language and words. And I believe, again, this is one of the key reasons this prospect gets more involved in the conversation. You can see here on the screen that actually the prospect does a fair amount of talking in this conversation, and this isn't just a one-way product pitch. So that's a really key point to make here. When prospects say to you, what is it that you're pitching? Don't see that as an invite just to talk about everything about your product. Because I can guarantee if you start talking about features and using technical jargon, it's a one-way ticket to getting the prospect to chuck you objections and to tell you why they don't need that, why they're good, why they're not interested, why they're using something else. So always when you hear what is it that you're pitching, what is it that you're selling me, start with the objective of going deeper or with the problem that you solve, putting it into a kind of a storytelling mode, making it more simplistic, help the prospect understand and visualize before you start to talk about the product itself. And then finally, I just want to wrap up with this last segment of the conversation, which I thought was a real highlight here, and it was the prospect kind of asked Mark a question. In fact, I'll actually play this part of the call.
Would be required to use it. It's probably, I don't know, it's probably something that needs a bit of thought, really, rather than just on a sort of a one-off conversation that we're having.
He's got the prospect interested. He's kind of saying, this we'll need to give this a bit of thought. We'll need to see how easy this is to use. We'll need to see who this helps in the business. Like, this guy is almost trying to think of this as like almost trying to make this call bigger than it needs to be. And Mark says something very clever here, which just kind of reduces the resistance and makes the prospect feel at ease. And here is what he says.
Oh, absolutely. There's no big decisions here today whatsoever. The only decision is, would you like to talk to me again?
So I'm not sure if you could hear that, but the guy's in the car, so there's a bit of background noise. Mark says, absolutely, that there's no big decision to make here. There's no big decision to make here. And that's key. Like, he's saying, listen, I'm not expecting you to suddenly sign up to Refract right now. I'm not saying this. The purpose of my call today was, do you want to buy? What he's saying is, there's no big decisions here. When the prospect hears that, how do you think that makes him feel? Just feels like a breather, a sigh of relief. I don't know if anybody who's watching this, please put in the comments, have you ever used the phrase in the call, there's no big decisions to make here? If you have used that before, put in yes. If you haven't, please put in why you think saying that works so well. It's such a powerful phrase that we've used in a lot of conversations. There are no big decisions to make on this call. And I want and I just want to hear that we've learned, as we analyze all these conversations, we kind of identify these little phrases, these nuggets of glory, is these little things that just can transform a prospect's perspective. This prospect was going down a route of saying, well, we need to figure out the ROI and the benefits and who would use it and all this kind of, whoa, take a step back. Like, this is not the purpose of this conversation. So here, that's a phrase you want to use, is no big decisions to make here. And this is the next part of the call. And the next thing that Mark says, I'm going to play this back again. And the reason I'm going to play this back is because I have this big debate a lot of the time when people say, what's the purpose of a cold call? Oh, it's to book a meeting, to sell the meeting. It is not. That's not the purpose of the cold call. The purpose of the cold call is, have I piqued your interest enough, or have we identified a potential problem here that you would want to spend more time talking about? Do you think this is something I can help you with? Yes or no? That is the purpose of the conversation, the cold call. And here is how Mark positions it. I'm going to play this part of the call again because I love this part of the call.
Oh, absolutely. There's no big decisions here today whatsoever. The only decision is, would you like to talk to me again?
The only decision is, would you like to talk to me again? Would you like to talk with me again? Sorry. And like, it's like one of the lowest friction asks you can make. Listen, the purpose of this call was not to sell you Refract, was not to get you to make any big decisions on who's going to use this, or even if this makes sense for your company. Is, have you heard enough today to think, you know what, Mark, I'm going to give you some time. I want to talk to you again, and maybe that next conversation might go nowhere, and that's fine. So again, I think why this is key is Mark is completely detaching himself away from the outcome. Are you hearing Mark beg for the meeting here? No. Are you hearing Mark try to convince this person that he's got this problem? No. Mark's just said, we've talked about some problems. Sounds like these sound like they might be familiar. Do you want to talk to me again? Again, just please put in the comments. I'd love to see. I'm seeing some comments come through. Azar's saying that no big decisions clearly would bring a level of common relief. Evan is saying only decision to make today is if you want to talk to me again. I want to know again. Do you think prospects how they would react if you said rather than say can we set aside a meeting or can we book you in for a demo? What if you just said, have you heard enough today that would make you even want to talk to me again? What do people think about that ask? Do you think it's easier for prospects to say yes to that than committing to 45 minutes? Notice that Mark hasn't even stipulated a time here. He's not said, can we have half an hour, 1 hour? That's irrelevant. Have you heard enough that makes you want to talk again? And this is how the prospect responds.
And on that call, we can discuss this in more detail.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Okay, I think it'd be good to have a look at how it works. So maybe like I'm going to struggle this week, but potentially next week I could have a look at something.
There we go. Prospects committing to time. Couple of other things I just want to share here. Look at how much Mark is talking on this call. We analyze talk time on conversations, and I can see that Mark, right on cue, has joined the conversation. This is the star of the show. I can see that Mark has spoke for 57% of the time on this call. It is normal on a cold call for salespeople to do a bit more of the talking than the prospect because there is more kind of information that you need to deliver in that conversation. It's normal for the salesperson to do more of the talking, but notice that Mark hasn't talked for 80% of the time. He hasn't rammed this conversation down the prospect's throat. He hasn't tried to beg for the meeting. And you can see that actually Mark's just done a bit more of the talking here. This was a conversation. You can see that the prospect has been highly involved in the dialogue. And so I want you to think about this, like, make cold calls a two-way conversation. Don't worry if you speak a bit too much, but we found that kind of 60% metric in cold calls tend to be the ones that end in productive conversations. And by the way, a productive conversation could have quite easily been this prospect saying, actually, no, this doesn't sound like a problem. It doesn't sound like, I want to spend time talking about this. And that's absolutely fine. That's a win in my book. Not every conversation you have should lead to the prospect wanting to talk to you again. If it did, sales would be very, very easy. I'm going to end there. Wanted to keep this quite short and snappy. If you've enjoyed this kind of LinkedIn Live, where again, like the only reason I put this together was because I was listening to this call and I was like, right, I'm going to share this to my network. If people like this concept of Richard hears something in a call and then wants to talk about it to his network, please put in yes in the comments just so I can gauge the audience. And we'll do these. We'll do these on a weekly basis, but they'll be sporadic. They'll be impromptu. I feel like this is, bringing education and sales, sales wisdom to another level because it's based on actual real conversations. It's not theory. Hopefully this was useful for everybody. Finally, we feel like we've got a streaming product that works reliably. And more of the same moving forwards. So thanks again, and speak to you soon. Have a good weekend.